What an honour it is for me to be here today to speak to you all, and thank you for having me. I'm going to share with you what it means to be blind, how it is to have a guide dog that's with you every step of the way, and some of the challenges that we face when we need to take our dogs to the vet. There are still many stigmas and barriers faced by guide dog handlers and their dogs, which all of us as a community can assist with breaking down. I'm here today though to focus on solutions to those challenges that are specific to the veterinary visit, because I believe these are practical things that you can take with you out into the big wide world as you start your very exciting careers as vets. A guide dog makes the impossible possible. These incredibly intelligent, superbly trained, hard-working, loyal, loving dogs are so much more than pets. They work to enable us to be able to integrate relatively seamlessly into everyday life because they are our eyes and they make life-saving decisions for us every day. One example. A guide dog can assist its handler to walk safely to a cafe by crossing a busy road, avoiding footpath obstructions, taking us, the handler, directly to the door of the cafe, then to the counter to order our coffee, then locate a seat where we can sit and wait for our coffee. This allows us to feel comfortable in a step-by-step process. A process that most people would consider pretty straightforward. Today, I'd like to give you the opportunity to consider the guide dog handler as your educator. This is someone who really knows their dog, someone who spends 24/7 with their dog, someone who has themselves been educated to monitor their dogs, especially everything that goes in and out of them. I want to encourage you to listen to what they are saying and perhaps what they are not saying. This is going to allow you to build a really strong relationship which will deliver the best possible care outcomes for the dog and the handler. Together with the dog and the handler, you are a three-way team. So although there is an onus on guide dog handlers to be honest with their vets, we do need to be mindful that sometimes, because of our disabilities, we can find it difficult to establish trust. So you may need to work a little harder on fostering this. We can sometimes feel vulnerable to open up, and one reason can be is because we don't always see your facial expressions to be able to determine that you really understand what we are saying. It can also be a self-preservation thing. We can sometimes be fearful that people are going to judge us and think that we can't look after our dogs because of our disability. So yeah, vet teams may need to work harder on building trust. And one of the best ways to do that is to take on board some of the things I'm going to offer you guys today. And in doing that, you are investing in that three-way partnership. So vision loss is a uniquely individual and personal journey, but when we take on guide dog mobility, there are some commonalities, and I will cover those today. My own vision loss is a condition called retinitis pigmentosa, which was diagnosed in my early 20s, and it's been steadily declining ever since. The main characteristics are night blindness and an increasing lack of peripheral vision. I was also diagnosed with a hearing impairment at the age of 5, but it has remained relatively stable and is fairly well corrected with 2 hearing aids. Let me say now that I know I am the right person to be talking to you all today because I'm a vet nurse. I'm so proud to be able to say that because as an industry, we care. We especially care about that unique human-animal bond. We value it and we respect it. Yes, I am blind, and I had to stop nursing because of my blindness, but in my heart, I'm still a vet nurse. I grew up on a farm in the Western District of Victoria, so my affinity with animals goes back as far as I can remember. I've always understood and respected them. From working animals, to livestock, to pets and those that cross over, I just get it. And for that, I am so thankful for those early formative years. After completing high school, I moved to Melbourne to pursue a career as a veterinary nurse, starting off as a junior trainee nurse at a large animal welfare shelter in North Melbourne that some of you will know as the Lost Dogs Home. I was there for 31 years. I completed my Advanced Certificate of Veterinary Nursing in 1991 at Box Hill TAFE, and I was fortunate to work across many areas of nursing, including surgery, clinical and shelter nursing. And surgery was something that I particularly enjoyed, and I still very much miss it today, even though it's been more than 25 years since I tubed a dog, clipped and prepped a surgical site, opened a spay kit and castrated a cat. Because my vision loss was progressive, I was able to maintain most of those activities right through my 20s. But then the reality of my vision loss started to kick in. The true impact came when I had to stop driving and started using a white cane to assist my mobility. Due to an increasing lack of peripheral vision, things such as darting from surgery prep to clean up, tripping over drug order deliveries became hazardous. But my central vision at that point was still functional enough to be able to complete static tasks such as cleaning instruments, paperwork and microchipping. Microchipping is something else I'm very passionate about, and I continue to microchip all the way through, and I could still microchip today as a blind person. Yes, I can, because I developed a pretty unique implanting technique which relied very heavily on touch. I can guarantee that any microchip that I've implanted will never have fallen out because I felt every single one pop out under the skin. But eventually I did have to migrate into more admin-based tasks such as drug ordering, adoptions, operations management and community outreach. And within community outreach, I was involved in the establishment of some pretty successful mobile microchipping programs. Again, I love my microchipping, including some interstate work and a mobile cat desexing program, which I believe is still running today. And I'm really proud of those achievements. But eventually, in November 2018, after many years of using a white cane, and as my remaining vision became less functional, I crossed the line to guide dog mobility when I was matched with the gorgeous 20-month-old Deso. I think her photo's up there. And she completely turned my life upside down in all the best possible ways. Although I haven't had a sleep in since November 2018 because she's a very early riser. But seriously, I now have the confidence to truly stride out and explore the world again and do things like what I'm doing here today. I had lost a lot of confidence, but now I have this tangible thinking teammate that I share all of my decision making with. The pressure and stress of making a safety decision on my own are gone. Now I can breathe because of her. I do just want to acknowledge at this point the existence of a wide range of other service and assistance dogs in our community at the moment that you are going to come across. Guide dogs and people who are blind or low vision are my areas of experience and expertise. Let's take the matching of a guide dog with its handler, for example. I get excited about this. This is a remarkable process. So while our guide dog trainers, our orientation and mobility specialists, and indeed the whole team that make up a guide dog school do a marvellous job, I believe the people who work on matching these dogs with their handlers are really skilled at what they do. Think about it. They have to know every dog in their school, individual dog, their strengths, their weaknesses, their personalities. They have to know their clients really well, their lifestyles and their personalities, in order to make the best possible matches. For example, every dog has a natural walking speed, as does every person. So imagine a fast walking dog, slow walking person, it's just not going to work. All dogs, who are social creatures, have a natural dog distraction. For a working guide dog, there's an acceptable range of that distraction where a 0 is absolutely no interest in other dogs whatsoever, up to about a 3 where the interest may be higher, but it's still within an acceptable management range. When Desi and I were first matched, her dog distraction was 0, which was perfect because I was working in a large animal shelter. So she had to be able to cope with working that environment every day. And she did this beautifully. I'd say that's a perfect match. Just like dogs, just like people, working dogs have their strengths and weaknesses. In Desi's case, her weakness was a slightly elevated anxiety with her veterinary examinations. Matching team got it right again. I was an ex-vet nurse working in an animal shelter that had its own clinic on site. I was going to be able to take my guide dog into that clinic whenever I needed to. And I did. And during those initial visits, she was definitely hyper aware, less calm than usual. I could really feel how tense and rigid her body was. And to tackle this, I was able to go and sit in that vet clinic waiting room every lunchtime if I wanted to. And this really helped her to adjust, just sitting there, just taking in the atmosphere. And then eventually, with the help of an incredibly supportive vet team, we were able to get her to the point where she was much more comfortable in that situation. During these visits though, I also became aware of other challenges, such as getting in and out of the clinic seamlessly through airlock doors, finding a seat in the waiting room that wasn't too close to other animals, let alone sitting on someone's lap inadvertently. And where was I going to be sitting in that waiting room in proportion to the consult room door? Was I going to be facing the right direction when they called me in? Pretty embarrassing if you're sitting like this and they call you in from behind there. So all of those things got me thinking about other guide dog handlers and their veterinary experiences. So while Desi and I had become very comfortable in that environment, I was already very comfortable. I'd come from a nursing background. So while we were sweet, I got to thinking, well, maybe that's not the case for other guide dog handlers. Are they experiencing challenges that haven't been voiced yet? So to get a better understanding, I created a survey, giving other handlers the opportunity to provide their thoughts and feedback on their veterinary visit experiences. And I was really pleased to get more than 65 responses in a very short time frame. And Russ and I will be sharing the results of those with you very shortly. So while the results of this survey were centred mainly around planned regular veterinary visits, I just want to spend a few moments now talking through how an emergency presentation can possibly manifest for a guide dog and its handler. So imagine this. Your normally calm, stoic, 6-year-old female lab becomes unusually restless and unsettled in the late afternoon to early evening. She still manages to eat her dinner as normal, she's a Labrador, but as the night wears on, this normally non-vocal dog is really sooking and groaning. She can't settle to sleep. This was Desi and I just a few weeks ago. I cast my mind back, I'm thinking, what could be different over the last couple of days? Could she have gotten into something that's upset her stomach? But no, if that was the case, she would have thrown up her dinner, which is what she's done on previous occasions when she's eaten something she shouldn't have. Again, she's a Labrador. So as again the night's wearing on and she's showing more and more signs of discomfort, and I know she needs some help. This is not normal. I'm thinking, oh, what could be different? You know, she hadn't, gotten some food. The only thing that did pop into mind was she could perhaps have been urinating a little bit more frequently, but her water intake hasn't changed. So there we are, she's failing to sleep, she's really uncomfortable, and I thought, oh, okay, there's something going on here. So that was stress number one, my dog is sick. As midnight approaches, I have to wake my husband and ask him to drive us to the emergency clinic. That was stress number two. I can't just jump in the car and take her myself. Stress number three, it's dark outside and night blindness is one of my vision loss symptoms. Stress number four, my dog is sick, she can't work, my mobility is impacted, I feel vulnerable. Stress number five, I have to take my dog to a clinic that she's never been to before and she's prone to high anxiety. So I call ahead, I explain, I'm blind, my guide dog is sick, she's prone to high anxiety with vet exams, I cannot be separated from her. And as much as I hate doing this, I also explain that I'm an ex-vet nurse. And I did this because I wanted them to know that I have a good understanding of what's going on with my dog. So upon arrival, we were greeted calmly and professionally by the same person I'd spoken to on the phone, and I could see that she's passed on all that information to triage nurse number one, who's standing by, ready to go. All looking good so far. Great, I'm thinking this should go well. But as things do in an emergency clinic, that first nurse got called away. We were left waiting for more than 2 hours without any communication. And this was incredibly stressful as Desi's anxiety just continued to go up and up and up. She was loudly vocalising, collar scratching, yawning, and even panting, the whole deal. And I have no doubt that my own anxieties and those of my husband were only contributing to her distress. And there was one other thing. I had chosen not to put her in harness because I didn't want her to think that she had to work when she was so obviously uncomfortable. My vision loss is not immediately obvious, and I wasn't using my white cane. So for anyone looking in the waiting room, there would have been no obvious visual indicators of, oh, yep, there's that blind lady and the guide dog. So when we were eventually called in to the consult room with triage nurse number two, I wasn't immediately confident that all of our information had been passed on because there was no acknowledgement of that. If there had have been a simple, okay, this is Desi and she's a guide dog, right? I would have been reassured that there had been consistent communication going on with the staff about our case, our situation. I didn't get that. So I felt that I had to explain everything all over again, which was stressful because I just wanted my dog treated for her pain quickly. Eventually the nurse began her examination, and the next thing I know, I've got a panicked 26 kilo Labrador frantically trying to scrabble into my lap. Goodness me, I'm thinking, what on earth has happened? Because remember, I can't see what's happening in the room around me, and no one is communicating back to me. The well-intended nurse had tried to take her temperature. Where was my husband while all this was going on? Well, yes, he was there. He was in the consult room with me, standing right next to me. But his own anxieties were through the roof. And he was just not able to communicate to me what was happening in the room as it was going on. If it had have been said to me, okay, I'm about to take Desi's temperature, I would have been able to hold her in such a way that she wouldn't have panicked. I'm an ex-vet nurse. I know my dog. And I have no doubt that if this nurse had have been more aware of the challenges that are faced by guide dog handlers, she would have known to communicate verbally and directly with me, because she was communicating with my husband silently through her facial expressions and her actions. But I had no idea what was going on, because it hadn't come back to me. So yeah, so two really important key points in that little story is just clear, consistent communication and making sure your client is aware that that has happened, and communicate directly and verbally with the client. So yes, I'm going to hand over to Russ now, and we'll go through some slides which will be hopefully some practical takeaways that you can take with you. And these are learnings and insights from the guide dog handler community. Once we've been through those, I'll come back and just close quickly, and then I think Russ will take over again with a few other things. So I'll just step back for now. And
Thanks, Mel. So of the 68 or 65 participants that filled out the survey, we asked them what's the first area that could improve, and it was about the clinic's accessibility. And most people agreed that clear pathways to the door was an identified pathway for toileting would be most helpful, alongside accessible car parks, ramps, high contrast and ground tactiles. Those are the little circles that are on the ground. I think today we took Desi for a toilet. I'm assuming we're allowed to use the grass area at the front. Yes. But
if not, it's too late.
It wasn't clear, so we just went and did it anyway. So it's those subtle things that might make a difference. And another takeaway is appropriate lighting and accessible counters. Most people with a guide dog have some degree of vision, and clear lighting can help that person utilise what vision they have left. So we want to make sure that the area is really well lit. The second area we asked was about greeting and the waiting room. And most people agreed that an audible greeting, information about the room, including other animals in it, seating away from other animals would be helpful for the sighted, and offering a sighted guide may be helpful. So firstly, in this room today, before we started, I gave Mel a description of the room, of how wide it was, where you're going to be sitting, the corners and the extremes. You could do the same in a waiting room, or you could ask the nurse or reception to do that. Pointing them towards the appropriate seat, and an appropriate seat away from other dogs. I know there's a lot now about cat-friendly practices and low-stress handling and that sort of thing, but also think about where the guide dog's best seated. And it might be best that the guide dog and the handler actually wait in the consult room separate from the area, because we talk about the dog distraction score. That can be thrown out the door with one aggressive dog in a waiting room. And you could end up retiring a dog based on that one incident. So best off to keep that space. The other part is asking permission to speak to the guide dog. So when Mel's got Desi, she's talking to Desi, letting Desi know what's happening next. The standard greeting that reception do at the counter to create some connection with the client might not be appropriate for the guide dog and the guide dog handler. So you would just ask, is it alright, or is it okay for me to use her name or his name? Anything you want to add there, Mel?
yeah, no, I'm just going back to my nursing days, and yeah, I always knew the dog and the dog's name, and it was just an instinct to go, hello Bobby, and totally clueless to who the person was. But yeah, it may not be appropriate. Some guide dog handlers will be okay, and I guess that's a really important point. You need to know your client and just speak to them, just ask them. Some things they may want you to do, and other things they may not. So yeah.
So we're now in the consult room, and it's important that vets give the handler time to speak and explain what you're doing. I had the experience of being Desi's vet the other week. It doesn't always come natural, did it, Mel? I think a few times you said, Russ, what are you doing? But you know, we took blood tests. I think you then got me back on track. Mel can still hold the vein up, which was pretty good for someone who can't see. It's all by feel, and we managed to take bloods from Desi.
Yeah.
So
and again, just sorry to rush up there. Again, that's a matter of, you know, checking with your client, how much information do they want? You know, in my case, I want it all and above. You know, I'm an ex-vet nurse, I want to know what's going on. But some clients may not be that comfortable. But it's just a matter of saying, okay, I'm going to do an examination now, do you want me to tell you? Okay, I'm putting my hand over the dog's body. Okay, I found that lump you're talking about. Okay, yep, just confirm. And the other thing that I particularly like, but not all handlers will, is the tactile thing. So I will often, you know, say to the vet, is it okay if I have my hand on top of yours as you're doing the examination? Or quite often, I've found something, I found a tiny teensy-weensy little fingernail-sized lump inside her groin, just in the subcut. And I said, oh, can I show you where this is, you know? So I grabbed his hand and showed him where the lump was. But again, it's a matter of checking with the clients of what they're comfortable with. Right.
So for the past 5 years, I've worked in the field of disability. I'm relatively new to guide dogs. But what I find sort of interesting as we talk about these things that make the experience better for the guide dog handler and the dog, it's all about universal design. You know, everything we're talking about here would benefit any client, right? Like, why go ahead and just examine a dog and not say anything when actually you could be explaining what you're doing, why you're doing it, and it actually creates a much better client experience for everyone, whoever they are. But as we just want to emphasise today, it's crucial for the person with low vision and blindness. Some other key takeaways is with respect to medication, making sure you've got consistent communication, harness preferences, and encouraging the participation of the handler. So ask directly, can I take the harness off? Do you want to leave the harness on? The handler will say what their preference is. Medication is an interesting one because you're going to be told one in the last 4 years. What's gold standard, first line? Antibiotics, for example, no antibiotics, pain relief, etc. You're probably going to work at a practice that have got really strict protocols. But think about putting the client first. What's the most appropriate choice for this handler, this owner, this client, and their animal? So with respect to, are they going to be able to handle doing eardrops twice a day when there might be an option to do it once a day when they've actually got an additional support available at home? This is just something that you need to start thinking about as you're out in the wild of practice. And just being upfront and asking the handler what can they do, what do they want to support with, and what would be their preferences.
Is that it?
No, I was just going to do the final one, which was post consult.
Yes.
So again, we rush through this consult. We then hand out a couple of packets of medication. How is the person with low vision going to remember what yours was told them, or how are they going to tell what's on the label? Okay, so most people with low vision would use some form of text-to-speech, whether that be on their mobile phone or on their computer. So provide the information in a written form. You could email it to them, and you could describe the eardrops, describe the container that they're in and how frequently they need to be given and how they do it. So do it that way to remind people. You can also do other stuff like put on tactile markers on packets to highlight that this medication has got the triangle on it, where this medication's got the square on it. So, you know, some of the things that we do at Guide Dogs, you know, outside of just dog stuff, is that we use things like puff paint. Right, so we have OTs that will go and visit someone's home and they'll use puff paint to put a mark on, we had recently, someone had a spa bath and we used the puff paint to say on-off switch because otherwise there was just two. We use those little stickers that are a bit like Diamantes and you can get different shapes to put them on the microwave. This is the 30-second button, this is the stop button, this is the go button. Those kind of things could be used for medications as well. Also, this is a bit of a DIY that Mel's husband did for a syringe, just to put some marks, some cuts in it, you know, with the saw that's come out of the orthopaedic kit, just to mark 1 mil, 2 mil, 3 mil, 4 mil, so that the person's able to measure that themselves. Alternatively, preloading syringes with the doses and putting the caps on them, particularly with liquid medications.
I mean, that's where compoundia is great, but it's expensive and not everyone can afford it. But yeah, I always take a compoundia option wherever I can, just for the sake that it is already made up and I just need to grab it and chuck it in. So, yeah.
So I was going to then talk just a little bit about guide dogs and how that works with you in practice and payments and billing, etc. But before we move on to that, just thought we'd pause to see if anyone had any questions about, you know, the part that we've talked about so far. Oh, at the back there.
I was just wondering if we could have access to those slides, or if there's like a summary that we can take to the clinics that we end up working at.
Absolutely, yes, definitely. Love to share them. Yeah. Actually, one of my blind colleagues, when I showed it to her, she said, "Oh, can I print it out and take it to my vet, please?" So yeah, absolutely. Please, yeah, reach out. Happy to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And we've got a handout that we're actually going to publish through with Bowringer, NextGuard Spectra, who's our sponsor. Any other?
Yeah, no, I'll just close off my little bit here, and then Russ can come back and finish off a little bit more. So yeah, like Russ said before, you know, that universal approach is really important, and you know, a lot of these tips, particularly handy for everybody, but even your clients that are blind or low vision that don't have a guide dog, they're just all really handy tips. Even if you just take one of them away and you're able to use that, that'll just be a huge help to a lot of people. And we want all of your clients to be going home and saying to their friends and family, "Oh, my vet team are the best. They just get it." And they even know, that the challenges and tricky things that guide dog handlers and their dogs have to deal with. How cool is that? So we hope that you can leave today secure in the knowledge that you all have the ability to make changes that can be experienced by all clients, not just blind clients. Because remember, your sighted clients are the ones that are really going to be watching and observing what's going on around them with the way you interact with other clients. So that's just, so that's pretty much it from me, and I just want to thank you all for taking a walk in our paws today, and hand it back to Russ, and there might be a bit of toing and froing. I like to talk, so I'll probably jump in.
Just a little bit about Guide Dogs Victoria. So we breed and train about 140 puppies every year. The puppies whelp on site at our campus in Kew, and they stay with us until they're about 8 weeks of age before going out to puppy raisers, and they return to us at about 12 months of age for their training. So you might experience providing veterinary care to them while they're with a puppy raiser. Sometimes they'll come back to us at our vet clinic at Kew, but a lot of the time they'll go to their local clinic. So the way you'd want to treat those dogs is really no different to a normal dog, but also just bearing in mind those negative interactions that they might have in the waiting room is still quite crucial to their development later on. the dogs get trained. It's a 20-week program before they're then matched, and then they go out with the person, which we call a handler as Mel. Now, with a handler, most handlers actually have an NDIS plan. So that means that they've got funding to purchase the dog. And really it's the donations that fund all the failed dogs. And that's why ourselves and CEDA, Vision Australia, rely so heavily on fundraising, because we place 47 dogs every year with free of charge as therapy dogs to mainly children with autism, also facility dogs. We've placed a dog with a court for sexual assault unit down in Geelong. But with the guide dog and the handler, they'll also generally have insurance. So I just want to make it clear that there really should be no reason for anyone to cut any corners when a working guide dog presents with a complicated issue. What's going to be really critical is making decisions that are going to maintain the longevity of that dog's working life and maintain its ability to work and reduce its number of sick days effectively. So in short, you don't want to stuff around with like, we'll do a test today and then we'll come back a week. It might just be worth trying to bundle things up to get things over and done with. And in some cases it might be the sort of case that you refer earlier than you would otherwise. But have that conversation with the handler, but also you're welcome to call us at head office and we can talk through options as well. Think about different medications and the impact that those medications will have on the dog's ability to work. And the most obvious one is pred. So a dog on pred that's polydipsic and polyuric and pees in a workplace is not acceptable. So we'd be trying to minimise any use of preds in a working dog. And of course, if it increases its appetite and Mel's taking a dog for a walk and there's a scrap of food in the gutter, you know, that dog that's now going to have this food distraction that drags her off onto the pavement could be devastating. So we do need to sort of be careful about those sort of decisions, and in some cases it might be more appropriate, you know, if you need to give something that's an immunomodulator, you might use something that would otherwise be a second choice rather than going for the preds the first up. We talked a little bit about choice about ear drops, and you might go for one of those drops that you can just do once for the 2 weeks rather than going for what would otherwise be a first line. But if in doubt, you're always welcome to give us a call, Guide Dogs head office, and we're happy to take the calls and just to work out some strategies that you might need to work through. Any other? We've got a question at the back.
What happens when they retire?
Yeah, so typically that retirement plan sits with the handler. You know, they would have the first choice to let the dog retire at home with them, and that's probably the majority, would you say?
Yeah, I would say, but there are, there's actually two elements to that question, I think. It's like, you know, when do we retire the dog? And that's where you as practicing vets may notice you're not really going to be seeing the dog working full speed, so to speak, and we are assessed every 12 months. We have an assessment. A trainer will come out and assess how we are going. Are we still safe? Is the dog still, you know, doing what it's meant to do? Is the handler still doing the thing they're meant to do? They haven't fallen into any bad habits. It's a really tricky one because all dogs are different, all people are different, their work is different. So it's not like they go, okay, dog's 8 years old, got to retire now. Some dogs may have to retire early for a whole range of reasons, or some dogs will continue working right through. I think she's my first guide dog, so I haven't been down this track. I don't even want to think about it, but I know I have to. I have to do the right thing by her, and I'm just having to hope that she will let me know when she's ready. And I have heard other guide dog handlers say that they have such a bond with their dog, but it's a matter of being honest within ourselves as well, and not being selfish and saying, I want to keep her working, when it might not be in the best interest for her. But I know that when that time comes, I have a great relationship with my local vet, and we check in on all this sort of stuff regularly. So I know I will be going to him and I'll be saying, David, I don't know, what do you think? You know, this is happening. And then I will be going back to my trainers and saying, okay, what do you think? This and this, you know, is it time? And I've just recently had to go through this process, because in my talk I mentioned when Des and I were first matched, her dog distraction was 0. We had one of those incidents that Russ was talking about, and now her dog distraction is up. We were rushed by a pit bull when we were walking down our local street. So she is a little bit worried about other dogs now, and I'm having to work really, really hard on correcting that. But that was potentially something, as Russ said, that I could potentially have had to retire her if she wasn't able to work through that. But, you know, touch wood, we're doing really well, and she's doing really, really well with that. So yeah, so it's that. And like Russ said, you know, if you come across a dog, you know, you build a relationship with a client, but, you know, you're not sure, go back to the guide dog school, and you need to check which one it is, by the way. It could be Guide Dogs Victoria, or it could be Seeing Eye Dogs. So just to remember, there are the 2 providers here in Victoria, but your handler will know who that is. So yeah, so that's the thing. So, and yeah, as for what happens to them when they retire, there's a lot of options. So in my case, I actually have capacity to have 2 dogs in my home, and my husband is already saying, is she ready to retire yet? Because he's really keen to have her as a pet. And I'm like, no, get in line. But for me, I think the biggest issue for me is going to be, initially I was like, oh, when she retires, I'm going back to using a cane, because I can't even think about bonding with another dog in front of her. My bond with her is so strong. And my husband said, nah, I don't like that other Melanie, that's not going to happen. So I will be going for another dog. She already knows I'm talking about it. So I will be going for another dog, and yeah, and I'll have to deal with that. And everyone has told me she will cope with it fine. It'll be me that'll struggle with it more. But failing that, I've got my parents in the background saying, surely Desi wants to retire in the country with Gran and Pa. And my husband's like, get in line, guys. So, but there are others out there that don't have that capacity. So a guide dog handler that perhaps lives on their own in a small apartment would not be able to keep 2 dogs. Having to leave a retired guide dog at home is just not going to work. And there are some guide dogs that I have heard that don't cope with their handler going out with a new dog. The dog will just pine and fret, and in that situation that dog was rehomed with another family member. But failing that, has she taken off? There you are, come back here. Yeah, she did that to me once. She just took off in a well-trained guide dog. Yeah, sure, stay there. She's going, come on, your 20 minutes is over. Yeah, so totally lost my train of thought there. But yeah, so where they go. And then of course we have the puppy raiser families. I've known puppy raiser families to take retired dogs back to see their retirement out. And we've got a handful of people that are on the waiting list, and that's where I put my parents, is to be there if there's nobody else in the family, that, you know, there are people that will take a retired guide dog to let them see their days out. So yeah, there's lots of pathways, and yeah, they certainly have good retirements. So yeah, so that's that.
And, probably over the dog's life, they probably technically the dog's performance drops a little bit year on year after they get older, but generally the handler, because they've got this partnership, they work really well right up until the end. It's generally a very distressing time for the handler when their dog retires, because especially if it was their first dog, because that first dog gave them so much independence that they didn't have before. So one thing's retirement, but second would be euthanasia for a working guide.
Close your eyes.
We're certainly there to provide some support if you guys need some help with that. And we actually have a partnership with a psychologist that's available to help the person, because it
Do
is...
we? Oh,
do, yeah,
great.
yeah.
Good to know.
We'll book you in.
No, not yet. What's he saying?
We basically, because it is so much more than just a pet, so it can be quite a difficult situation, and of course it'll be difficult for you, right, if you're the person that's having to say what has to be said. I'm at the back there.
Just following that, in the clinic environment, how do the dogs go being separated from their handlers if they have to stay in hospital or anything like that?
So I'll give a first answer and you can give a second.
Didn't hear it. So
what happens when the dog's separated from their handler?
Oh, okay.
So when you see a working guide dog and they've got this harness on, they're so serious and they're so calm, and you almost think they're like sedated. But when you take the harness off and they're at home, they're just stupid Labradors. so once the harness is off, they're effectively just like they're going to be any other Labrador. Although the difference is, when you ask them to go back in their cage, they just go back in their cage. You don't have to sort of force them in. So being a vet for guide dogs is pretty good. You don't get the back in the There was one over there.
I was kind of going to ask the same question of what's the process of you having to admit the guide dog, and what would it sort of look like if a dog had a procedure that needed an extended recovery, like a TPLO or something like that?
So if it needed that, you'd probably have a conversation with us that we would sort of work out the best way for that to happen. We'd want to make sure that you are getting the most appropriate surgery. We've got the ability to recover them at Kew. We've got a swimming pool, we can do rehab. But from time to time they'll have TPLOs. Yeah.
And there may be temp carers as well that can step in there to help if the handler doesn't have, full capacity to do a lot of that aftercare as well. So.
My question's more about what happens to the handler. So, like in an emergency situation, the dog needs to be admitted, and how can we as vets help the handler, like they've just coming with the dog and then taking that away from them?
I couldn't hear all of that. Yep.
Let's say you're at the emergency clinic, the dog needs to be admitted in the middle of the night. How can they help you?
Yeah, okay, thank you. That's a really, really great question. And again, it's very much, every handler will be different with every relationship they have with their dog. In my case, when I talked about the emergency situation, I knew that I couldn't be separated from her, and I had a couple of emergency experiences with this dog. I had one where it was just like she had gotten something out of the bathroom bin and was like, oh, okay, are we going to go down ultrasound with this dog or not? And I had to say, look, I know this is not normal, but I can't leave her. If you're going to knock her out, I need to be with her. And I was lucky the vet I had was just like, oh yeah, it's not procedure, but yep, I get it. Okay, you're an ex-vet nurse, you can't see anything, but that's okay, we can work with that. But there are other handlers that would just be more than happy to go, just do what you need to do. You're the expert, just do what you need to do. So yeah, it's just a matter of just, having that honest conversation with the handler, and how much information do they want. They're no different to your other clients in that some clients want to know exactly everything, whereas some just want the bare minimum. They just want to know you're going to look after the dog, and that's that. So I think I'm a little bit too close to this situation in a way, and that was why I did that survey, because I had all these thoughts that maybe, but I'm really comfortable in the vet environment, but what about other handlers? So yeah, so that's where, I know I'm the right person to talk to you all because I can relate to you all, but I'm perhaps a little bit too deep in this industry. So I think just really have that conversation, that honest conversation with the owner.
Maybe time for one more question. Oh yeah.
Firstly, it was the admission one, but then in terms of with the handler and then the dog, mostly in terms of ownership, is it entirely the handler, or is there sometimes information that we need to liaison with Guide Dogs Victoria or Australia?
Yeah, so technically we're the owners, but so we work together with the handler about those veterinary decisions. All of the dogs, we have a pretty comprehensive workup before they become a guide dog with genetic testing and whatnot. So you might want to contact us because we might have history that's relevant for what you're doing. But actually the costs of the treatment are sitting with the handler, but noting that they'll generally have insurance and they'll generally have funding through NDIS to cover the gap. But it's a conversation I can have with anyone. So if in doubt, ask the handler, do I need to contact the school? And we're always happy to take it.
Yeah, and there is also, because I now work with guide dogs in the fundraising team and philanthropy, there are some options there as well, like hardship grants and stuff like that, which can be available to guide dog handlers if there is a shortfall. So there is definitely potentially funding available there as well through our philanthropic department.
Yeah. So I was going to say,
just going on to that same question though, ultimately I think the implication was the really hard decisions. Did those decisions fall with the handler, or do they ultimately need to be referred through to the organization to make that tough, like euthanasia type decisions?
Yeah, you would if during daylight hours you would call the school, but ultimately you would have to make a welfare decision if it was something that had to be made at night.
Yeah.
Just finally, I think when I sat here 22 years ago, the Dean at the time, Prof. Capel, he was saying, good luck and go and make some mistakes. Do you still say that? I found it really helpful because you will make mistakes and don't beat yourself up over them, learn from them. The other thing I wanted you to think about is learn from your nurses. Your nurses will be your best friend in that first year, and I couldn't have coped without having those competent nurses that helped me in my first year. So good luck.